right, well, welcome everybody. We are going to talk about Facebook marketing today. So the point of this training is going to be to talk about some Facebook marketing basics and kind of get everybody on the same page and show you how to launch an actual Facebook campaign and go through the actual steps that are involved in that. So we've put together some information here, and then we're going to actually do a hands-on demo, and we're going to show you how to set up a Facebook campaign. So onward and upward from our awesome intro slide. So your hosts today are me, I'm Dan Woodman, and Max. Max is our commander of clicks, and Max is going to be here to answer any questions that I can't answer or to chime in when I forget to say something. He is our Facebook marketing expert. I am just our entertaining expert, so I will be delivering the presentation, but he is the one behind it. So if I'm not entertaining, that means I didn't do my job, and that's gonna be a black mark on my record, just so you know. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about planning. So surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, there's actually quite a bit of upfront work that goes into planning a Facebook campaign. So what you don't want to do is just, oh, I have an idea, I'm going to throw this out there, because that is how people lose their marketing budgets. Because it doesn't, if a campaign isn't set up right, it doesn't actually take very long for your marketing budget to disappear. It's incredible how fast it can happen. So we're going to talk about the planning. We're going to talk about boosting versus ads. So I know a lot of people, when they think about running an ad on Facebook, they think of when they post on Facebook and it says, oh, boost this post for money. And they think that's the same thing. And it's not the same thing. It's a perfectly acceptable thing. It's just a different thing. So we're going to talk about when that makes sense versus when it makes sense to go in and actually set up an ad campaign. We're going to talk about the structure of an ad campaign, and we are going to talk we're going to actually walk through and look at how that works with a hands-on demo. And I say hands-on demo, it's going to be my hands-on, but you get to watch, so it's more like a backseat demo. All right, so when you're planning an ad campaign, the first thing that we need to think about is the content that we're going to be putting out there, because the content needs to be engaging. It needs to catch people's attention. Garbage is garbage, right? So if you put a bad ad out, it's not going to get the engagement that you want. And I don't think anybody is really surprised by that. I think everyone knows that, but it's a good thing to be reminded about. So the other part of planning a Facebook ad campaign are the 5 questions: who, what, when, where, how. Who, what, when, where, how. Yeah, 5. We skipped why, because why is obviously to, actually, you know what? I should have included why. We're going to add why. All right, so who will you advertise to? That's building your target audience. And that's a really important question, because you're basically paying to get in front of a specific audience. So the tighter that audience is, the more bang you get for your buck. So the bigger that audience is, the more diluted it is, right? Just kind of marketing 101, but it's important to keep that in mind. What are you going to advertise? This is a combination of, whoops, somebody just tried to join and I didn't quite get to click the link before they disappeared. What will you advertise is, what ad are you going to run? What's the copy that you're going to put along with the visuals? So what are you going to put into people's news feeds to try and get them to stop and take the action that you want them to take? And really, what action do you want them to take is also part of that question. Is it a buy now button? Is it a sign up button? Is it a learn more button, right? All of these things kind of fall into what. When will you run the campaign? That's just, you have to pick a start date and an end date. And again, right, if you focus in on a shorter time frame with a bigger budget, sometimes that can be beneficial. Sometimes it makes more sense to run a longer campaign with that budget. And sometimes it makes sense to break it up into pieces, where maybe you target people with one message and then follow up and target them with a separate message later, or even do a retargeting campaign. All of these things are part of when. Where will you send people who click? This is all about the target that you're sending them to. So we're going to talk about this when we talk about landing pages, but ultimately when they click that button, where do they go? That's the where question. And then how much will you spend? That's your overall budget. And that's important to think about because you want to, again, make sure you get the best result you can for that budget. So does it make sense to put all your eggs in one basket and run one campaign with your entire budget? Does it make sense to divide it up? All of these questions are good questions to ask. And then the why question that I left out, because when I made this, I wasn't thinking about why. Why is actually really important because why you're advertising is going to help you figure out what kind of advertising strategy you want. Because Facebook has several different, they call them goals. What's the goal of your campaign? They have several different goals that you can choose from. And why you're advertising can help you pick which one of those goals is most appropriate for your campaign. All right. Any questions so far? That was a lot of information that I just spewed out all at once. Everybody good? Okay. Boosting. Ha! What is it good for? Well, the answer is not absolutely nothing. It does have a place. So boosting is really good for promoting existing organic content. So basically what boosting is when you put a post on Facebook, there's Holly right there. Holly, perfect timing. You are just about to learn what boosting is good for. So when we're talking about boosting, that is when you post some content on Facebook and it offers you the opportunity to boost that content. So essentially what you're doing is putting money behind a post to have Facebook show it to a wider audience. And this is promoting existing organic content. So it's promoting something that you've already posted. Is the idea behind a boost. It's wider distribution of content that is already getting engagement. So one of the things that Facebook does that's a little bit tricky of them is as soon as you make a post, they offer you the option to boost it, right? We've all seen it, like boost this post and get more views. But they'll tell you, if you go in and look at their best practices, they'll tell you don't boost a post as soon as you put it up. Let it run its course first. Let it start to get some organic traction and then go in and boost it. So we've all seen those messages on Facebook after a post has been up for a while and you're in your newsfeed. It's like, hey, you could get 86% more views if you boosted this post. That's them telling you now is the time to boost it versus as soon as you put it up. So it's a little bit sketchy of them to offer you the option to boost it as soon as you make a post and then kind of hide the fact that that's not actually in your best interest. You're better off to wait until it's already got some engagement and then boost it for any number of reasons. One of those is that when people see a post that has some engagement on it already, they're more inclined to look at it, right? We probably all are guilty of this. When you see a post in your newsfeed that has a dozen comments on it, you're probably more likely to look at it than if it has 0 comments on it. So that's part of it, but there's more reasons for the Facebook algorithm and how the boosting works and all that. And I'm sorry, the hands, that's just a thing I can't stop. So you're just going to see that happening. If you have a good post, a good article, a good video, if any of that content, if any kind of content that you have is getting some action on your Facebook feed, that's a good candidate for boosting if it makes sense to push that out to a wider audience. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense to boost a post that's doing really well because it's just meant for your followers or your fans, and it wouldn't make any sense in a wider audience outside of that network. So it's really up to you to kind of decide, would this make any sense for people outside of my page to see? And then there's the intermediate part of boosting a post is, I think we all know this by now, but sometimes I'm shocked by how many people don't. When you make a post on your page on Facebook, just because people have liked your page doesn't mean they're going to see it. Even if they've selected to like your page, follow your page, show your posts first, it still is no guarantee that those people are going to see your post. So sometimes if you have a post that is important, that you do want your audience to see, it can make sense to boost that post to get it out to more of your own audience than it would just on its own organically. So the main goal of boosting is typically audience engagement with a post. And it's really kind of Facebook advertising light. So it is not as robust as going in and creating an entire ad campaign. It's great content, less power. So it's a one-off campaign. It's a little bit less granular. So Facebook is actually building up the boosting. You can go in and target audiences. You can go in and exercise some control over your boost, but it's still a lot less granular than the ads manager. And it's also weaker reporting and analytics. You don't get the same level of information about a boosted post that you get about an ad campaign. Okay, so that's boosting. So now let's talk about Facebook ad campaigns. So Facebook ad campaigns are highly targetable. I think we all know this, but the level of targeting is a little bit dizzying even to us when this is what we do every day, day in and day out. It's still a little overwhelming how many options there are to actually pick and choose who you want to advertise to. So you can really get in there and find some crazy off the wall things that you can target people based on, like magazine subscriptions, whether they're a fan of specific websites. It really does get pretty granular. So it's very highly targetable. You can make multiple ad sets and multiple ads part of your campaign. And this is important, and this is something that you want to do. What you don't want to do in most cases is launch a campaign that only has one piece of creative. You don't want to launch a campaign that only has one ad. And the reason is, and we've probably all seen this, eventually you see that ad over and over and over and over again, right? And that's called ad frequency. And what happens is your campaign gets stale because people have already seen that ad. It doesn't stop them in their newsfeed anymore. They just scroll right on by it. So you're much better off to have multiple images, multiple versions of a video. Even if the video just has a different thumbnail on it, it looks like a different video as you're scrolling through your newsfeed. And all of these things help you keep your ad frequency from making your campaign go stale. So ad frequency is a number that you can see inside of your ad manager, and it tells you how many times the average person in your audience has seen your ad. And when an ad gets up to really above 2, it starts to go a little stale because people just aren't interacting with it. So you have multiple ads, different creatives, that keeps the whole campaign fresh. Ads Manager gives you better tracking, better analytics. So the reports that we get on an ad campaign are pretty comprehensive, all kinds of information about who saw it, how they interacted with it, how many times they saw it, lots of information there for you to consume and figure out what went right, what went wrong, how could we do things better next time, right? Just a lot of information. And the best part is there's no extra cost for running a Facebook ad versus boosting a post. It's a little extra work, but we're going to show you today how to do it. And once you learn how to do it, it's I don't want to say it's second nature, but it's certainly not oppressive. So the ingredients of an ad campaign on Facebook. So the strategic parts are the goal. That's what we talked about is why. So the goal, the target audience, who you're going to advertise to, the creative, which is the copy and the actual ads that you're going to run, be they images, videos, carousel ads, whatever they might be. The landing page, which is where you're going to send them, the budget that you're going to use, and the time frame that you're going to run the campaign for. And then the structure of the ads is actually campaign, right? So that's all encompassing of all the ad sets and all the ads. Under the campaign, you could have multiple ad sets. And the ad set is where you get to pick the audience. So that's where you're going in. So the campaign, you pick the goal. You can only have one goal per campaign. So if that goal is to drive traffic to a website, for instance, that's the goal for the whole campaign. But then underneath that, you have ad sets. And that's where you can pick different audiences. You can choose different locations for your ad to run. That's where you get to do a little bit of customizing about who is seeing the ads, and then the actual ads themselves. And you get to pick You can make as many ads as you want. As far as I know, I don't think there's any kind of limit. If there is, it's certainly not something you're going to run into. And you can put those ads in different ad sets. So you can run one ad in this location and one ad in this location and have them both appear very customized. Even if they're the exact same creative, you can just change up the copy. So we'll take a look at how this works too. Okay, let's take a look at Facebook Business Manager. What we're going to do first is actually walk through creating a new campaign. So I just logged in and I hit the big green create button. So now the first question that it's going to ask me is, do I want to do an auction or do I want to do reach and frequency? So in 9.999 times out of 10, you're going to want to do an auction type campaign. Okay, reach and frequency, you're going to want to stay away from for now, till we get to the advanced class. So once you've selected auction, then you have these goals. So I mentioned these earlier. These are the why. So brand awareness, if you mouse over these, they give you a little sort of high-level presentation about what it is that that this particular Facebook goal is trying to accomplish. So let's just walk through these so you have an idea. So brand awareness, show your ads to people who are most likely to remember them. So this is what I like to call some Facebook voodoo right here. And I say that because Facebook is going to try and show your ads to people that it thinks are going to remember them, and it thinks they're going to remember them based on some Facebook magic that you don't really ever get to see. One of the things that Facebook uses to determine whether or not people it's called ad recall, or now I think they call it ad lift recall. And they use some magic in the background to determine what that ad recall is. Part of it is based on past performance of the individual. Part of it is based on a little survey that they send out to some people who actually saw your ad, and they'll ask if they remember it. So the brand awareness one is, I don't want to say it's sketchy. It's not sketchy, but it's just a different kind of goal. It's separate from the rest of these. Reach is the same thing. So reach is not Facebook voodoo. It is just they're literally going to pump the ad out to as many people as they can that fit inside your target audience, regardless of whether they're what Facebook's algorithm thinks is a good fit or just a fit. So instead of like targeting the 60% of people in the Facebook audience that you've chosen that are a really good fit for your ad, it's going to literally push it out to 100% of them and try and get in front of 100% of those people. So reach has its place and it can be really effective, but it's probably not something you're going to want to do for this campaign or any others that you have coming up in the near future, unless you are really trying to accomplish something super specific. Traffic, on the other hand, is probably where you're going to want to be 90% of the time. Again, unless you're trying to do something really specific, traffic is what you want. So traffic is going to drive people to the landing page that you have set up with as much effectiveness as it can. So Facebook's going to target people out of the audience you choose that they think are most likely to actually click on your button and go to your site. And they are going to continue targeting that portion of your audience with your ad, trying to get them to the site. So traffic is, like I said, 9 times out of 10 what you're looking for. Sometimes, though, engagement is what you're looking for. So if you have an event that you're doing, so let's say, for instance, that you have a farmer in your area that's running an event like, come out, take a tour, whatever that might be. If you're trying to get people to respond to an event, then engagement can be the target that you're going after. So if you're not boosting the event and you're actually running an ad for it, you would want to use engagement, where you're actually driving people to the post and asking them to click on the yes, I'm going button. App installs, let's not worry about that. That's literally what it sounds like if you have an app and you're trying to get people to download it and install it. Video views. So this is interesting because the premise here, so if you have an ad that's running that's a video, You can still do the traffic option where the main goal is to get people to go to your landing page. Video views is literally, you don't care about the traffic that's going to your landing page. You just want to get as many people to watch the video as you can. So this would be more of a brand awareness kind of campaign where you're actually just trying to get as many eyeballs on a video as you can, which again, right, that can absolutely have its place. But for the campaigns that we're running right now, it's not as good as traffic. Lead generation is interesting because the idea here is that you're not sending people to a landing page. You're sending them to a little form where they can basically indicate that they're interested, give you some information, and then you get a lead, as opposed to them, going to a landing page, reading more information, clicking a button, signing up somewhere on your website. So they call these lead ads. Maybe you've used one in the past, but when you click on this, it's like a sign up button, and when you click on it, it has information in a form that's already pre-populated with as much information as Facebook has about you. So maybe like your name and your email address and your phone number are already in there, and then maybe there's a couple of fields that it asks you to fill out, and when you submit that, boom, now you've got this person that's interested in whatever it is that you were trying to whatever service or product you're trying to provide them, and that comes into your Facebook inbox, and then you can follow up with those people as you, at however you want. Messages is send us a message in Facebook Messenger. So maybe you've seen those ads too. The idea here, right, is you're going to get a handwritten message from somebody in your Messenger account. So this can be really helpful if you're trying to ask people a question, or if you're trying to get them to tell you, why they did something or why they didn't do something. Then this kind of campaign goal can be really effective. So store traffic is really not going to be a target for this campaign, but store traffic, so it says store traffic, but it's better to just think about it as real what IRL, in real life traffic, meaning that people are actually coming into your business. So this could be good for your farmers if they were doing an event, or if they were doing something where it was open to the public, especially on an ongoing basis, and that's what their main goal was to drive people to the farm. This could be a good choice for a goal. And basically what happens is Facebook, in its super creepy Big Brother way, tries to measure whose mobile device was at your location and then match it up to ads, right? So that's how that part works. Conversions is very, very similar, except that it doesn't have anything to do with in real life. It's just there's a certain action that you want people to take. So maybe that action is to go to your website, click a button, fill out a form, and hit submit. Okay, so let's say that's the action that you're trying to get people to take, if that's what you're trying to do. So let's say you're trying to sign them up for a mailing list, for instance. And if that's the action that you want, if that's your goal, then what you do is you label that submit action as your conversion. That's your goal. And anybody who fills out that form and clicks that button has now converted. So conversions will try to drive people to the website and actually through that process that happens on your website, and then report back how many people actually did it. So it could be signing up for something, it could be buying something, it could really be anything that has an action associated with it. Even viewing a web page, right? If you wanted them to go look at a specific web page, that could be a conversion as well. And catalog sales, we're going to skip that for now. That implies that you have a Facebook catalog built, which is a whole separate thing that we're not going to talk about today. But if you have questions about it in the future, feel free to reach out. So I'm going to set up a traffic campaign. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to give our campaign a name. We're going to call this a test campaign. And then we get to create an ad set, and then we get to create some ads. And Max, I haven't done this in a while. Do I have to create the ad set right now, or can I?
No, you don't have to right now. You could, if you launch it right now, you would just have a campaign with an empty ad set you can fill out later.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and create an ad set now. and I'll create ad set number 1 and ad number 1, and then I'll go ahead and click continue.
And just to add a comment, Dan.
Yeah.
Super helpful if you guys name your ads something specific, because later on we can track via URL which ads are doing well, and that'll just give you some more information as to which one's working out.
Yes, what I just did is terrible. Do not do what I just did. That's only for the purposes of this class, but yes, as an actual ad name and an ad set name, that's terrible, terrible. Especially because later when you're looking at your analytics, you'll be pulling them out and it'll ask, which campaign do you want to do? Well, the campaign's not bad. This is a test campaign. All right, I can remember that. I want to pull the test campaign data. But then when I'm looking at, well, ad set 1 did better. Well, what is ad set 1? What audience was that? I have no idea. So yeah, that's terrible. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so this is what the campaign manager, the ads manager page looks like when you're just looking at your list of campaigns. So what you can do is if this is what you're seeing, you can go in and edit this. So I'm going to click on edit, and then it's going to bring back up that screen that we were just looking at. So as we go through here, here's our campaign name, where if I want to change it, I can. Special ad categories. So if your ads are anything related to one of these things they have listed as special categories: credit, employment, housing, social issues, which that's the one that you probably have to check on now and then, elections or politics. If there are any of those, then you have to turn this on. And if you turn this on, then Facebook is going to make you agree to follow their policies and be non-discriminatory in your ads, which obviously we're all going to do, so that's not even a thing. Okay, so our buying type is here again. Our goal is here again. We could change this if we wanted. Down here to show more options. So the campaign spending limit, this basically means that you can go in and set an overall budget at the campaign level, which this is not how I used to do it. Max, do you set this when you run campaigns?
You can set it at the campaign level, but depending on your targeting, like if you had a couple of ad sets and you wanted one to focus primarily on like mobile devices, then you would want to set the budget at the ad set level.
Right, and the ad set level makes more sense to me. You can go in and set it at the campaign level, but when you set it at the ad set level, keep in mind that at the ad set level, you're talking about demographic information and location information. So it's a better place to go in and specify your budget, because imagine you're hitting 2 different geographic targets. So let's say in our case, we're in Bloomington, Illinois. So Bloomington, Illinois, plus 25 miles would be 90% of what we target for our local businesses. But occasionally one of our businesses is also in Springfield, Illinois, or Peoria, Illinois, and maybe they want to run the ad there too, but maybe we turn the budget down there a little bit because the likelihood of conversions is going to be smaller there. Or if we were running an ad and we know we're going to hit this big area and this small area, we certainly don't want to target them with the same budget, because we'll literally overwhelm the small area with ads, while the big area might not have enough budget to actually get the job done. So setting it at the ad set level makes more sense. The next step here is the A/B test. So you can test campaigns, ad sets, and ads against each other. So if, earlier I mentioned having multiple versions of your ads so that things don't get stale. An easy way to do that is to set up an A/B test and have multiple ads running in a test, where Facebook will essentially deliver those ads equally and see how each one performs, and then report back, hey, this ad did much better than this ad. And it will allow you to change up the creative, meaning you can go in and change up the image or the video, or you can just go in and change the copy. So sometimes that's what you want to test is this copy better or is this copy better? We've all seen those ads, right, that have 2 lines of copy and a read more, and you click read more and it opens an entire screen of text. Sometimes that can be super effective. Sometimes that's not. It just depends on the audience and what you're trying to accomplish with that audience. So changing up the visuals and changing up the copy is all good ways to run an A/B test. And that's where you can do that right here, but you can also do it later. You don't have to do it right here. And then campaign budget optimization. This is if you have a campaign, you have multiple ad sets, all of your ad sets have a budget, and you want to optimize the budget across the ad sets. So if you are picking a budget that goes with the specific demographic slash geographic audience that you're targeting, you can ignore this. If you turn this on, what this is going to do is it's going to try and equally spend your budget across your ad sets as opposed to spending more on this one and less on this one. So we'll go ahead and click next. All right. Now we get to name our ad set. So we could certainly name this something better. So we could do something more like this, where we talk about who the audience is for this particular ad set. Now we get to pick where we want to drive traffic. Now, I mentioned earlier that we were going to come back and talk about landing pages. This is super important. So the example that I always use is when you go to a website and you're shopping for something and you don't buy it, but you've clicked on it and you've looked at it. And later you see ads for that particular product all over, right? Everywhere you go. So let's say that you're looking at a pair of shoes. So you're on Amazon, right? You're on Amazon, you're looking at a pair of shoes. Could I get more cliche? But that's what you're doing. So you see that particular pair of shoes everywhere, all over the internet. That's called retargeting. So what is happening is because you looked at that pair of shoes, Amazon is retargeting you with that product that they know you're interested in, but you didn't buy. And you see those ads everywhere. Well, when you click on that ad, it takes you back directly to that pair of shoes. It doesn't dump you on Amazon's homepage and just expect that you're going to dig through and find that product, right? Because let's face it, we're not going to do that. Or if we see a product that we're interested in on the internet, in our Facebook feed, right? We see something and we're like, oh, that sounds intriguing. And you click on it, a good ad campaign will take you directly to that page where it's talking about whatever that product or service is. It won't dump you on somebody's homepage and expect you to go find it for yourself. A bad ad campaign will. And there's a couple of reasons that this is important. One is just for purely selfish reasons, your ad is going to convert at a much higher rate if people are dumped out on a page that's related to the ad that they just saw, and it actually makes some sense in context, and that they're not having to go look for whatever it is that they thought they were going to get when they clicked on the ad. But the other reason, which I guess is also a selfish reason, which in advertising is okay, by the way, it's okay to be selfish because it's your money that you're spending. So the other reason is because Facebook has what they call a quality score, and they attach that quality score to your ad campaign. And part of that quality score, in fact, a big part of that quality score, is how people are interacting with the page that they land on and how closely related is that page to the content of your ad. So for instance, to continue on with our shoe analogy, if we were advertising a pair of shoes on Facebook, and when somebody clicked on that ad, they ended up on the Magic Blue Box's homepage talking about marketing services, even though we've got a page that's all about shoes. If it's talking about marketing services, people are going to leave. That page isn't related to shoes, and both of those things combined are going to drive our quality score into the basement. And what happens then is if our quality score is low, number one, Facebook does not show our ad as often, and number two, it costs more for us to bid on the same audiences. So if you have two campaigns and this one has a quality score up here, this one has a better chance of winning auctions at a lower price than this one does because the quality score is low. So I guess actually I didn't ask, can you all still see me when I'm presenting my screen? Because otherwise what I just did makes no sense. Okay. I just realized the people that are watching this recording are not going to be able to see me. So what I had there was one hand was real high and one hand was real low. Okay. So it's important that you have a landing page that's really well crafted and tied to your content. So you want people to be able to find the information that they think they're going to find when they click on your ad, and you want them to be able to find it easily and take whatever action it is that you want them to take. So often I tell people that the ad copy and the creative for the ad are far less important than the landing page when you're creating a successful Facebook campaign. And it's true, because you can catch people's attention with a bad ad, but you're not going to be able to get them to convert through a bad landing page, right? So it's really important that we take that second step. And that's one of the main things to really think about when you're building out a campaign is, where am I going to send these people, and what is it that I want them to do when they get there? And is it real clear from the copy and the imagery on my landing page? Does it look like they're going to the same place? So dynamic creative dynamic creative is the ability to allow Facebook's AI to put together the ad that it thinks is working the best. So earlier we talked about A/B testing, right? So you can test this ad against this ad. But this is sort of an automated way to test a whole bunch of different pieces of copy and visuals at the same time by, instead of creating an ad, what you do is you write a bunch of headlines and you write a bunch of pieces of copy and you upload some images or some videos, and Facebook will take all those pieces and put them together in different ways to see which one is working the best. So dynamic creative can be super effective or not, just kind of depending on the pieces that you put together. Max, do you have any input on using dynamic creative and what you think of it? Mostly because I need to take a drink here.
From what I've seen, they work especially well for like mobile experiences, but that's like if you have those extra assets that you can like add to the campaign. But they typically have a much higher click-through rate too.
There you go. So you would recommend them?
Yeah, if you have the ability to use them, I definitely would.
Okay. So again, right, just to reiterate, dynamic creative is, instead of building out a whole ad where you write all the pieces and you take that video or that image and put them all together in a specific set, you basically just put together a whole bunch of pieces and you let Facebook assemble them like a puzzle in whatever way it thinks it's going to work. And what it will do is assemble and reassemble until it finds what it thinks is the best performing combination. And it actually gives you results based on what the best performing combinations were, and it tells you which headlines, which images are working the best.
It's kind of similar to like responsive display ad from Google. If anyone's ever worked with that before, we kind of like plug and play with the pieces and it figures out what works best.
Right on. The offer. So this is exactly what it sounds like. If you have an offer that you're trying to get people to sign up for, be it a trial, an introductory offer, whatever it might be, this is where you can go in and turn that on and go in and pick the page that you're advertising it here for and create an offer on that page, which you're driving people to. Budget. So your budget is, as you would imagine, a huge part of any Facebook campaign. And the budget, you can go in and set a daily budget, or you can go in and set a lifetime budget. Now, in most cases, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set a lifetime budget, and you're going to want to set that lifetime budget, how much you're going to spend over the life of the campaign. And if you have, so let's talk about $1,000 budget. This does not necessarily mean that you need to go in and assign $1,000 to this particular lifetime budget. Because remember, we can make different ad sets, we can make different ads. So we're going to want to split that budget up amongst our ad sets. But we're also going to want to think, does it make sense to do a campaign here and then follow it up with a different campaign? So, you know, it's not as cut and dry as just, well, I have $1,000, so I'm going to plug $1,000 in here under lifetime budget. You can also set a daily budget, and I bring this up because I know that you want to show this to some of your farmers. You can set a daily budget where it will just run. You know, you don't have to pick an end date, right? It shows that the end date is optional with a daily budget. So you could go in and set a daily budget and literally just let the campaign run, and Facebook will continue spending that much as often as it can every day until you go in and end it. Now, I will tell you right now before Max unmutes himself and jumps in with a, well, I'll tell you that we already talked about ad frequency. So if you're going to do something like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on things and going in and switching up your creatives. Because if you just have an ad that's going to run forever and ever, people are going to get really tired of seeing that. And just think about the ads that, if you watch TV shows, think about the ads that you see over and over and over again during your TV show. Or for me, it's ads here that are on the radio. I mean, they're just like, there's some ads that you only hear once, and then there's ads that you hear literally every time you're listening to the radio, and it just makes you want to pull your hair out. So you don't want to be one of those ads. Okay, now let's talk about audiences. So audiences are the people that you're targeting, right? I mean, that's pretty straightforward. That part's pretty easy. But Facebook allows you to go in and create an audience. So audience can be a number of different things. It could be just as easy as this, where I've got a location, where I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick a location. So if I was advertising in Kay's neck of the woods, I would go in, let's say, for instance, that I type in Fargo. So I could do, I could target Fargo and plus or minus a radius around Fargo. So I could scroll this down as close as 10 miles, or I can get as wide as 50, depending on where I think my audience is. Or if I want to be more specific than that, I could definitely get more specific than that. I could drop a pin. All right, so let's drop a pin right here. And now around my pin, I could go as tight as 1 mile. So if I know that most of my audience lives within a mile of this pin, boom, right now I've got them. And I can do both of these things, or I can, just choose one. But I can tell you right now, I just picked an area in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota, so I'm probably not going to have a big enough, a big enough audience to do anything.
Ironically, Dan, you're not far from my hometown.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and I was going to say, please don't be offended, because if I were to drop a pin like that outside of my hometown, it would have been the same scenario. It would have been like, well, you got 6 people that live in a mile here, and they're all related. Okay, so now I picked Bloomington, Illinois. I just went to, where I'm from, or where I live. And I've got a plus 25-mile radius around here. So I can go in and I can adjust the ages. And I called this, when I named this ad set, I called it 40 to 65 plus. So that's just what I'm going to use here. And as I'm updating these this demographic information, over here on the right, you can see these numbers changing. So now Facebook is estimating, based on who I'm targeting, they're estimating that I'm going to get 2.4 to 7,000 people that see this ad every day, and a potential of 21 to 60 people that actually click on it. Now, obviously, that's just a guess, because at this point, I haven't told Facebook what I'm advertising yet. So it's just guessing based on experience that that's what I'm going to get. Now, if I go in here to detailed targeting, I can go in and I can add interests and behaviors and demographic information that's going to let me narrow this audience down. So right now, up here, it shows you my potential reach is 89,000 people. If I go in here and add in, let's see if organic farming is a. So organic farming, I can pick organic farming as an employer, as a field of study, as an interest, or farming in general as a demographic piece of information. So I'm going to have an interest in organic farming. And let's see what that does to my number. So now my number has gone from 89,000 down to 4,100 people. So that's a pretty narrow target that I've just picked. But I know that the people that I have picked are much more likely to be interested in this particular ad campaign. So this is actually good. I've defined my audience. But maybe I think, well, 4,000 people, that's probably not big enough. I need to add some more people in. So I can go in and I can add more. So if I go in and pick sustainable living, let's pick sustainable living. Let's see what that does. So now I'm up to 5,700 people. And that's, I mean, I know this doesn't seem like science. This part I feel like is a little bit art, but you can go in and just kind of play around with those and add and remove things, and see, how it affects your potential audience, and get to a number that seems like that's going to be a good number. So really, if you look up here, it shows you that I'm right in the middle of the green zone, because Facebook doesn't want to advertise to an overly wide audience. It wants you to pick a narrow, specific audience because it wants to maximize your conversions. Because this is how Facebook makes its money, right? It makes its money on you paying them to advertise to people that you're trying to get in front of. So the better the results that they give you, the more likely you are to advertise. But on the flip side of that, people that are using the platform for free, right, which is everybody, when they're looking at their newsfeed, if they're getting a bunch of ads that don't relate to them, they're going to be super annoyed, right? My example is, for whatever reason, Amazon Prime, every time I go to watch a video, they show me it's some football movie that they have. I have never watched football on Amazon Prime in my life. I've never watched anything sports related. And I don't understand why they continue to target me with that. Literally any ad they had would be better than that. But that's the one that they choose to show to me. So it annoys me. And you don't want to do that on Facebook. And Facebook doesn't want to do that. They want to show ads that are relevant to the people that are using the platform, because that makes the experience better for them. So really, they want you to pick an audience that's interested in your ad. So again, you can go in, pick the audience that you want to advertise here. And once you get it, the way you want, then you can move on. But before we go too far, let's look at these two buttons. So we have exclude and we have narrow the audience. So exclude allows you to go in and add more demographics here and pick people that are not interested or not a member of that demographic audience. So for instance, we could exclude people who match, let's go back to organic farming. So if they have organic farming listed as their employer, they're probably not a good fit for this, or maybe they are. I'm just making stuff up. But we could go in and eliminate people based on this same demographic information. Narrowing an audience is similar, except now basically instead of an if statement, so if people like organic farming and if they like sustainable living, we're going to show them this ad. This is an and statement. So we could take sustainable living and move it down here and say we only want to show people, we only want to target people who like organic farming and sustainable living. And that's really, yeah, see, that that just knocked our audience down basically to zero. Facebook is like, no, too specific. But that's what the narrowing is. Now, I mentioned early on when we started talking about audiences that Facebook calls a lot of different things audiences. So what we've just done is we've created an audience that we are going to target. There's 4,100 potential reaches in this audience. We can save this audience. So we could go in and save this audience. And right here, we have a button called Save This Audience. We could save it and we could give it a name and we could keep it in our Facebook profile and we could advertise to this audience again later. We also have the ability to save this audience and exclude it later. So if we were going to try and do a second campaign and we didn't want to target the same people, we could go in and exclude this first audience from that next campaign so that we're not targeting the same people over again. There's also something that's called a lookalike audience. So Facebook has the option to do a lookalike audience, where if we know that this audience was really successful and we want to run another campaign, but we don't want to target the same audience, but we'd love to find more people that were as willing as this first audience, we can create a lookalike audience where Facebook will go in and try and match up people who are similar to the people that were in this audience, but different. So there's the lookalike audience, there's the saved audience, there's also a custom audience, so or a matched audience. So what this is if you have a list, let's say at the farmer's market, your farmers have a list of all these people that signed up to get their newsletter or stay up to date on what's going on. And maybe they have a name and a city and an email address, or an email address and a phone number. You can take that information and you can upload it into Facebook. And then Facebook will try and match the people on that list to people that use Facebook and put them into an audience for you. And then you can target those people with whatever ad you're going to run. And you can also take that audience and make a lookalike audience out of them and try and target them with your message. So really, when you're talking about audience, Facebook includes a whole lot of stuff into that one word. But really, there's a lot of power here in who you can target and how you can target them. So does anybody have any questions about audience before we? Oh, Max, you have a question?
Yeah, just with like the lookalike audience, that's why we want to make sure we have those pixels in place on your websites, just so that when it's gathering the traffic of people coming in, it will know that somebody similar to that demographic is somebody they could target.
I am so sorry. Thank you for bringing that up. I should have mentioned actually about the Facebook pixel right here. So the Facebook pixel, if you're not familiar with what it actually is, all it is a little piece of software that goes on whatever website, landing page, right, wherever you're sending people from your Facebook campaign, or actually just wherever you have people that might be browsing. So even if you're not doing a Facebook campaign aimed at your website, you still want the Facebook pixel running on your website, because what happens is every time somebody browses a site that has a Facebook pixel on it, that Facebook pixel tracks them, and then you can target people who have been tracked by that Facebook pixel. And you can track people who have just set off the Facebook pixel in general, or you can track people who have set it off in a specific way. So imagine that instead of your website, imagine a grocery store. So imagine your website is a grocery store. So when we're talking about the Facebook pixel, imagine that the little security bubbles up in the sky are just watching people walk through the store, and they know who everybody is as they walk through the store. So it's a small town grocery store because they know everyone by name. But you can actually target people in different ways. So when somebody walks in and they go to the milk to the dairy aisle, for instance, and they're looking at the dairy products, the Facebook pixel makes a little note that that's where they're at, and then you can target people who were in the dairy section. The same is true of the frozen foods section or the cereal aisle, right? So you can really get specific based on every page on your website, but you can also get as specific as what action they performed on your website. So if you, for instance, have a form that they could fill out, click a submit button, go to a thank you page, you could put an action on that thank you page that says if somebody came here, track that they came here. And then you can target people who have done that thing. So it really gives you a lot of control over how you're going to build an audience, who you're going to target based on actions that they've taken before. And I know it's creepy and big brothery, but at this point, I mean, we all know it's happening and we're all just okay with it, I guess. So that is what the Facebook pixel does, though. So it's important to have it running on your website, and it's important to have it running on any landing pages that get built outside of your website. You know, if you're using some kind of landing page builder, you want to make sure that that's running so that it's tracking what people are doing and can report back and give you metrics. Earlier, when we were talking about maximizing conversions as one of the goals, that's also, it's that pixel that measures or that monitors whether or not somebody completed that action and counts as a conversion. Okay. And now I need to get back into my ad set here because I clicked on the view charts button and messed myself up. Okay. This button right here, actually this box right here, reach people beyond your detailed targeting selections when it's likely to improve performance. Basically what this is Facebook is saying, hey, if you didn't set this up the way we think you should have set it up, and we think we're smarter than you, is it okay if we spend your money the way we want to instead of the way you said to? I think that's a pretty accurate summary. But what it will do is, if somebody doesn't fit into your actual audience, but Facebook thinks they'll be responsive based on whatever magic Facebook Voodoo is going on behind the scenes, it's asking for your permission to target that person. So, Max, do you usually turn this on? Do you leave it off? Is it 50-50? Do you flip a coin? Do you use a magic 8-ball?
If we have like a pretty wide targeting, I'll leave it off. But for the campaigns that we're talking about setting up today, it might be a good idea to keep them on. It's hard to define because Google doesn't have an exact definition of their own thing, but it's essentially what their algorithm thinks will get you more and cheaper clicks.
Right. Okay. And then the last piece of the audience pie here is connections. And this is who you want to target. So this is important when you're boosting something as well. So this is kind of everywhere. This connections means, are they a fan? Are they somebody who already likes your page? Are they a friend of somebody who likes your page? Or do you want to exclude people who like your page? So if you were boosting some content and you wanted to get it out to all the people who follow your page, you definitely want to make sure you target people who like your page, right? Because that's going to limit the audience to people who like your page, and it's going to let you boost. Unless you have a huge audience and a huge number of followers on your page, this is not going to work for an ad, right? Like, we're not, if we had 1,000 followers, we're not going to be able to go in and say, hey, just target the people who like our page for an ad, because the audience is going to be too small. Friends of people who like your page is exactly what it sounds like. If you've already marketed something to the people who like your page, then you want to target their friends. That's the next step. For the most part, when you're running an ad, that part is probably not terribly important, unless you're trying to limit your ad to people who like your page, or you're trying to exclude those people because they already know about whatever it is you're offering. And if that's the case, then you definitely want to go in and make sure that you exclude those people, because there's no point in paying to target people that already know about everything that you're talking about. So now let's move into placements. So automatic placements, Facebook says this is recommended. Of course they do, right? Because everything that's automated is what they recommend. But in this case, it's actually not a bad thing. If you go into manual placements, you can see a list of everywhere that you could potentially be advertising. So by default, these are all places that you could be advertising on Facebook. And you could go in and turn these on or off. So I could go in and say, for instance, that I want to advertise on Facebook newsfeed, but I don't want to advertise on the Instagram feed. So I could shut that off. Or I don't want to be in the Facebook marketplace. So I could shut that off. I would say for the most part, you probably want to leave most of these on. I personally am not a huge fan of the Facebook right column. Max, same?
I agree.
Yeah, so I usually shut that one off. And like I said, you can go in and kind of pick and choose where you want to be. But for the most part, most of these make sense for the kinds of ads that you would be running. Now, where it makes even more sense is if you're making something that looks specifically like, so for instance, let's say you made an ad that was designed to look like a Facebook story or designed to look like an Instagram story, then you probably want to go in and turn that on and turn some of the other stuff off, because that's a specific format, right? It's going to be an upright phone-shaped video as opposed to a TV/screen-sized video, which is usually landscape versus portrait. So if you're doing something really specific, it makes more sense to go in and get really specific with where you're presenting your ad. But in general, if you're just running kind of a general ad, especially to get the feel for it, it makes sense to leave most of these turned on.
Something else to keep in mind too, the view chart function that I mentioned earlier, when you can look at the performance of your campaigns. It's not always the case, but sometimes you might see something like your ads, for whatever reason, are more expensive on Instagram than Facebook. And this will give the option to turn that off if you want, so you can put more of that budget focus on the Facebook side of things, or vice versa.
Absolutely. You can also specify down here whether you want to be on all devices, mobile devices only, non-mobile devices only. If it's something that you only want to happen when somebody's connected to Wi-Fi, which the only thing that you would do there is if wherever you were sending them as a landing page was a better experience with Wi-Fi, because you had a lot of videos and it was a lot of content coming at them. So then you've got a whole bunch of selections here that you can go in and say, I'm going to block some things that I don't want to show up on. I don't want to be on some live streams, right? So that's kind of what this is about. You can go in and create a block list. You can read all about this. In most cases, this is not something that you need to be too concerned about. And if you are too concerned about it, it makes more sense to just go up and shut off those options of showing up outside of Facebook, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then down here, we have optimizations for ad delivery. So our selection was traffic, which means you're trying to get people to a website. So our ad delivery is going to be optimized for link clicks, but we can also optimize it for daily unique reach, which is how many people see the ad every day, impressions, which is how many times the ad was seen, regardless of how many people. So you want to be careful with impressions, because if your audience is small and you're targeting for impressions, it's going to be right into that overwhelming thing that I mentioned earlier. So for the most part, you're going to want to do link clicks or landing page views. The only difference being link clicks means somebody clicked on your button and went to your destination. Landing page views means they hung around and waited for the landing page to load. So it's pretty similar. One is measured by Facebook. That would be link clicks, because you click the button on Facebook to go. The other is measured by the Facebook pixel, because the Facebook pixel tracks whether they really let your page load or not. Cost control gives you an option to set a specific budget per link click. This is probably not something you're going to want to do anytime soon. If you really get some expertise with the platform and the ads that you're running, this is something that you can do, but for now, you're just going to want to let Facebook automate it and just make sure that you have all your other options selected the right way. Whew, this is a lot, right? We haven't even gotten to the ad yet. But it only seems overwhelming right now because we're going through it line by line by line, and I'm talking ad nauseum about every line. Eventually, right, you're going to get to the point where you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. This is okay. So here we come in, and now we're actually ready to make an ad. So we give our ad a name. We pick which Facebook page is actually going to be marketing this ad. And the reason this is important is because when you see an ad, it's got the profile picture up in the corner of where it's from. You're going to want to make sure that that page, if you've got multiple pages, that page matches up with who they think it should. So then we could come in here and we have the option to use an existing post as our ad, similar to a boost. We could use the Creative Hub mockup. I don't even know what that is. It's some new Facebook tool. You're welcome to play with it. Or create an ad, which is probably what you're going to want to do. And then you have the option to pick, do you want a single image or video? Do you want a carousel? Do you want a collection? So if you pick the single image or video, it's going to have an option down here to go in and add media. You can add an image or a video. So I'm just going to pick an image out of my catalog here. So now I've got an image. If you didn't already have something in there, you would just upload it instead of choosing something that's already in there. Primary text. This is going to be your headline. Well, I guess this is actually your headline, but the primary text shows up above the ad. The headline shows up down below the ad. And then my description. Okay, so I've got, this is my description and this is my headline are down here. And then this is my primary text is up here. And now earlier we talked about the dynamic creative. You can actually go in here and add multiple headlines, multiple primary texts, and get these all in right here and let Facebook mix and match them as it goes. And then over here you have previews of what all of your ads are going to look like. Here it's asking where we're going to send, excuse me, where we're going to send people who click on the ad. So we'll want to put that in here. And then you can click on the preview and it will actually take you to the site and make sure it works. The display link you don't really need. Basically, that's just like if you have a really long URL that's got a bunch of stuff in it, you can shorten it up as long as it stays at the same domain. Not super important. The call to action. So this is going to be what your button says. So if you want your button to say learn more, bam, you're set. If you want it to say something else, right, you've got these other choices here. Learn more is a pretty good generic button. If we get down here to tracking, this is where we're actually monitoring the Facebook pixel activity. So you want to make sure that your pixel is installed wherever you're sending people and that it's got a little green light next to it showing that it's working. And in this case, it says we're tracking website events using this pixel. So that's perfect. And then down here, your URL parameters, you can actually go in and set up URL parameters. So if I click on build a URL parameter, it's going to give me this window, which lets me go in and type in values for all of these items. So campaign source, we can just use the name of the campaign. Campaign medium, we can set to Facebook. I guess I should have put campaign name here. What should go up here, Max? Campaign source.
Usually what I do is for campaign source, I put CPC.
Oh, right.
For the medium, it will be Facebook. And the next two, you can actually do like the ad specifics. But if you guys are running anything like Google Analytics, you'll see this as incoming referral traffic, but it gives you the exact line so you know which ads are getting those impressions and clicks on the site.
Yeah, so what we just did here, so this looks confusing, but what we just did is we set a campaign source of cost per click, campaign medium of Facebook, campaign name, and then the ad set name, and I put just ad set name underscore ad name. So what's going to happen is by adding this content to that parameter section, when we're looking at our traffic in Google Analytics, we're going to be able to break down the traffic that came in as a result of this campaign, and then actually break down the campaign traffic based on which ad set or which ad name. So actually what I should have done here was I should have set this to ad set, and then I could have added a parameter and given it the ad name. So now what would happen is I'd be able to see which content came in from, or which traffic came in from this campaign, which ad set and which ad generated that traffic. So when I'm looking at my Google Analytics report, I don't just see 300 people visited my site. I see 300 people visited my site as a result of this campaign, and then I can dig in and really get into where that traffic was from. Now, the reason that that's important, because Facebook will give you all that information from its side, but the reason that that information is important to you and the reason that you should care is because by tracking it on the website side, you can see people that landed on the website that came in from a particular ad. You can see what they did after that, right? Facebook is just going to show you this many people clicked on this ad, this many people clicked on this ad, this many people clicked on that ad, but it's not going to show you what happened once they got to your website. And Google Analytics will, and it will break it all down based on those parameters. So again, to build those, you just click on the build a URL parameter, and then you fill these boxes out. And what you put in here isn't as important as making them distinct, right? So the CPC that we picked stands for cost per click. So that's the kind of advertising that we're doing here is CPC. The campaign medium is Facebook, and then the campaign name, content, ad, etc. Differentiates which ad was running. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, so once we get our ad all built, the last decision that we really need to make is if we are running a mobile ad, you have the option to do what's called an instant experience. So if we were going to run an instant experience, the instant experience gives us the option, where did it go? I mean, you all just saw it, right? It was right there. Well, it doesn't matter. The instant experience, if you choose the instant experience, what it does is it gives you the option to build your own little landing page inside of the Facebook experience. So what ends up happening is it's limited to mobile devices, and it gives you a little drag and drop block editor to sort of build a little landing page with headline, photo, video, whatever. You can put buttons in it. It's a really simple little way to build an experience that only happens on the phone. And it's not going to be, something amazing that has a lot of moving parts, but it is going to be designed for a phone, and it's an easy way to build a landing page if you don't have some other way to do it. But it's only for mobile devices. So now, once you have got your ads built, and we only built one here, but we could certainly go in and build more. But once you get your ads built, then you hit the publish button and you are finally done. So that is how you build and launch a Facebook campaign. Now, if we want to go take a look, so I know we mentioned a lot of different times here. It'll show you this, it'll show you that, it'll show you this. Let's go look at a campaign that we actually ran. And let's look at the charts and whatnot. So this is a campaign that we ran. Actually, is this? I guess I should have done this one. Okay, so this is a campaign that we ran. So these are the charts that Max was talking about. So here we can see 5,608 people were reached as a result of this campaign. The cost per 1,000 people reached was $34.63. We can see that the average person on this campaign saw this ad 3 times, and a total of 17,225 impressions over the course of this campaign, which means that's how many times the ads were seen. So if we go into demographics, we can see that our reach was 5,608. And here it breaks it down into men versus women and age categories. So we can mouse over all of these and see what age categories actually saw the ad. And we even get a cost per result in each one of these age categories and in the men versus women. Okay. Now here we've got something interesting. It says results purchase for. This is because we actually did a conversion campaign where our goal was to get people to buy something from the website. So in this case, we got 4 purchases, and we could go in and break those down in more detail and see who purchased, how much they purchased, etc. This is all courtesy of that Facebook pixel that's running on the website, and us setting up this as our goal and making purchase our goal. So we can also see here the placement. In this case, we can see that Facebook was pretty much primarily the driver here, right? Very little on Instagram or the audience network. So it was primarily Facebook is where our ads appeared. And this one we can't see because we did not do a reach and frequency ad. Remember, that was the other option versus auction. So that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is a good example, actually, because we were running those campaigns for about a week when I realized that Instagram was being a bit more costly than Facebook. So that's what's really helpful to check these charts every once in a while, because you can see, like if your money's going somewhere and it's not doing a whole lot, you can cut that down and make the whole campaign more efficient too.
And you can see we had multiple ads inside of this particular campaign. And you can go in and look at the performance of each ad independently to see how it performed. And it's important to take a second and realize that it's not just this chart up here that you want to look at. It's also the engagement that your ad got. So down here we can see that this ad had 3 comments and 1 share. And we could see that this had 8 comments and 14 shares. So obviously 14 shares made our money go much further than it would have gone without those 14 shares, right? So that's important as well, and you want to take a look at that as well. It's also worth mentioning that one of the things that you want to do is you want to manage comments on your ads, and there's not I don't love how this is set up, but it is what it is, right? So you can come in here and manage the comments on your ads. But you definitely want to do this if you get anybody saying anything that you wish they would not be saying on your ad. You can go in and hide the comments or delete them, which is definitely something you want to do. Now, these comments are great, right? This is the place I was telling you about. Like, you can't get better comment than that, right? They're tagging one of their friends saying, holy cow, this is the ad. This is the guy that I was talking about. So those we love. But, like, this guy's a jerk. That's an ad that we probably would not want to keep, or a comment that we would not want to keep on our ad. So I think I covered everything that I promised that we were going to cover. I guess we could talk about this screen right here. So this is our campaign management screen. And if we come in here and look, we've got tabs up here across the top. So this shows all of our campaigns. You can target in on them by checking the box, and that will filter on the next page. So these are all our ad sets and all the details about our ad sets, and these are the details about our ads. And then if we go in here and check one of these boxes, it will filter on this page. Now we'll only see the ad sets that are part of that campaign and the ads that are part of that campaign. This gives you a lot of information, and you can go in and customize this information by going over here and customizing your columns. You can do different breakdowns to show different information, and then you can also generate reports here based on the information that you're seeing. So hopefully that helped.
Thank you very much, Daniel and Max.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Have a great week, everyone.